So let me get to the last point of the conference, which is a roundtable discussion about the factors which will be most important in driving future fertility trends. I would like to invite 5 discussants, participants in the roundtable to come to the floor. And they got a very simple task. Select one factor which you think will be most important in the future and kind of prepare a free discussion on that. There was no limit to their thoughts besides giving them 4 to 5 minutes only to present their ideas. And presenters were free to pick up the option to present slides or just to talk without the slides. So I don't even know how many of you have slides. But I hope it will be an exciting discussion and that you will survive if we go 10 minutes behind the schedule, because we can't do this in 25 minutes. I think it's also exciting because we have all these factors which have been discussed, which have affected fertility in the past, and theories, gender inequality, policies, economic factors, labor market conditions, uncertainty among young adults, housing market, value changes, economic development, compositional effects, education fever, postponement, timing effects, social media, and now comes the future. So I'm very curious to learn what would be the thoughts. I give each of you these 4 to 5 minutes which were promised, and then I hope to still have some time for questions and reflections and some final round of comments from the presenters. I would like to start maybe the way, as you said, at the table would be a great way to progress, so why don't we start with Setsuya?
So, thank you, Tomas. It's my great honor to be selected as one of the speakers, especially if I look at the people on the stage, as the speakers on the stage. So, yesterday at the reception, I was talking with one of my old friends, saying something similar and saying that I was a bit nervous, blah, blah, blah. And what she said in response was, well, Setsuya, your slot for this round table is East Asian quota. So you don't have to do overly good. How nice, but it's kind of lowered my psychological bar to this round table. So coming back to this question, what's the most important factor likely to influence future fertility trends and why? I'm aware that my expertise is limited to the East Asian context, mainly in Japan. So I'd like to limit my focus also in fertility trends in East Asia. So my answer to this question is, in East Asia, most important factor is marriage. Marriage has been the most important proximate variable of fertility, and I believe that it continues to be so. Why? The first reason is marriage. It plays a central role in family formation. If you look at the percentage of extramarital births in Japan, in total births, it's rapidly increasing, but from 0.8% to 2.3%. So it's not much at all. And the second point is if I draw the trends in total first marriage rate and total fertility rate in Japan, it's very nicely corresponding to each other. Here I use a total fertility rate for all births, but imagine if I use a TFR for first birth, the correspondence gets stronger. And second reason is that if marriage continues, couples are expected to have 2 children on average. So here is some graph showing that married first-married couples after 15 to 19 years of marriage, they tend to have, they are slightly declining but still having around 2 children on average. So the third reason is that young adults still highly value marriage. this is showing the percentage of young adults, which is never married men and women aged 18 to 34, intend to marry someday. So it's very high percentage of young adults still intend to marry. It's over 90% for women and nearly 90% for men. However, if you look at the percentage not in any relationship with the opposite sex among the same people, it's very high in Japan. And it's increasing. So nowadays, never married young adults, 72% of men doesn't have any boyfriend, girlfriend. And then over 60% of women, never married women don't have any boyfriend. So this is kind of the same. We call it the vegetalization of young adults because they don't hunt for meat. So this is already kind of things that our generation cannot really understand. So more research is needed. Why they don't form a relationship? So if I go one step further, discussing then what will be the factors relating to the future marriage, then first thing comes in is of course education, because education determines when to marry, whom marry, and how to meet potential partners. And especially I think in East Asian context, it's very important the enrollment of university education. Because if you include other type of tertiary education, such as 2-year college or vocational school, women are already more educated than men since the 1970s. But their labor market position is much lower than university graduates. But if you look at the trend, women are very rapidly catching up with those university enrollment to those of men. So imagine in the future, kind of catching up and crossover, maybe things change quite a lot. And one important aspect of higher education is shaping more egalitarian gender role. As you know, and Alicia did in her keynote, there is a large gap between expectation and reality in gender role in East Asian societies. And that gap is also exists for both men and women. So these gaps should be narrower in the future. And finally, precarious employment can be mentioned. Because as you see, the percentage of recent graduates who is ending up, who is having non-standard employment is increasing. It's different by sex and education, but the general trend is it's increasing, so that affects future prospect of young adults. These are three things that I can come up with, but of course you are welcome to suggest other factors which can likely affect fertility trend in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Setsuya. So now it's Trude's turn.
This was a big question to ask Tomas. And when I started to think about this and working on this, I'm not quite sure whether I picked something that is the most important thing, or is what I would be most interested in working on. But I think there's a little bias there. But anyway, I think the new fertility trends will emerge from the intersection between gender and social diversity. I think the social inequalities will increase among men as well as among women. So in the Nordic countries lately, we have seen that the gender similarities is increasing. So women's fertility pattern is becoming more similar to what we see among men. And among men, the educational diversity in childlessness is increasing, while among women there is a convergence and even a switch. And in several of the Nordic countries, the highest childlessness is now found among the lowest educated. So I think we need to focus more on male fertility, where there is more diversity than among women. And we need to ask why men are lagging behind in family formation. I also think we need more focus on social diversity, and we need to ask why lower educated are lagging behind in family formation. And from my point of view, I think we do not have good enough theories to explain new fertility trends in the intersection between social diversity and gender. And I also think that, as demographer, we need more focus on developing theories that can exactly describe future trends in fertility.
What's your answer? What is your answer to the question? In 1 second.
What I think, well, I answered it in a little different way. So I think the future trends will be found in the intersection between gender and social diversity. How it will turn out, we have seen some signs in the Nordic countries, but whether it will be in the same in other countries, I don't know yet. I can't predict the future. So, but that's how I chose to answer.
Thank you. Sorry to bother. Sorry, I was just asking again because this sort of related to what I'm saying. So I take a perspective from somebody who is doing population projections until the end of the century, and we just need to make choices whether the TFR in China in 2090 is going to be 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, or whatever. So what is the main driver there? And the same, of course, for Europe and all the other countries. And my short answer is it is desired family size. It is the social norms that have people having a certain view of how important childbearing is in their life and how many children they want to have. Let me give you a little background. There are many factors empowering people to both men and women and couples to reach that. I mean, first, in the demographic transition, of course, we have a sort of a fatalistic attitude towards childbearing. Then it is really education, material education of women and literacy that brings us to a more rational planning. And then, at a certain stages, people actually give you a numerical answer to the question how many children you want, and that is strongly influenced by social norms, what they see around themselves as an example. Then in Europe, we do have a very profound two-child norm there. And, but people are in a different degree empowered to meet this norm. And I think what we just heard about the more highly educated having higher fertility can be interpreted as they being empowered through, I would say, the cognitive resources that come along with education, which also are associated with social capital, with better networks, and being able to arrange your life and your partnership better in a way to achieve your two-child norm. And that's why people who have more of these resources, more of this social and human capital, can indeed better achieve their norm, which tends to be 2 children. We don't know what's in China. I mean, there are some surveys that show us in China 80% of women in the cities like Shanghai want 1 child. They've never seen anything. So they will then use their empowerment to reach whatever the goal is. And this is, of course, there are obstacles, but assuming that the future will be brighter and better and everybody being more empowered, then the decisive thing is what is our ultimate wish in terms of how many children we want to have. Thank you.
Alicia, we are running fantastic with timing. You guys are racing.
I'm very happy because I have a lot. much about that part.
But I will give you warning after 4 minutes and then don't do more than 5.
Okay. So when Tomas asked me about this, it's a very tricky question because you had to choose one, and that's always very hard. And so, you know, my first candidates were the usual suspects because of my interest in more developed countries and my own research, you know, postponement, ART, genetic manipulation, potentially the need for siblings for other kids, or the shifting educational gradients. But then I was thinking, he's asking me about the world. And in fact, if I'm thinking about the world, where do I really have the larger margins? So if I'm thinking about where really the movement is going to come, it's going to come from, you know, sub-Saharan Africa, it's going to come from less developed countries. And then thinking about which are the main determinants, I said, well, what's my bet? It's about politics, stupid. That's basically what the Americans say. It's all about politics. So that's my bet. So I'm going to say the focus is going to be political stability and political institutions. These are going to be the key things for the future to explain changes in fertility. And let me show you the 3 pathways I had in mind thinking about the role of political institutions. So the first is going to go through political stability, violence, and institutions, and particularly the role of leaders in some of these countries. And this is going to come, for example, with the example of the African exception. So this is a graph from the paper from Bongers in PDR in 2017. And we really see that Africa started a later fertility transition. Compared to other countries, they have higher fertility for the same levels of GDP per capita. And part of the explanation comes from, you know, lower contraception use and a higher family desire. You know, Wolfgang was saying it's very important, the family desire. So the question is there an unmet need? And so my argument is that politics matters in here. So on one end, we have traditional pronatalist culture in some of these countries. We have a lack of leadership, a lukewarm approach by the political elites to extending family planning, and most importantly, a very weak governance. And the weak governance is affecting the ability to invest in human capital. And we know that weak governance has an impact on political instability, on wars and violence, and we know that affects the inability to control territory, the inability to reach some regional access for family planning, for health services provision, and for educational infrastructure that we know are going to be key for the decrease of fertility. And that, in addition, you know, thinking about the paper we saw the other day, combined with forced displacement, that, you know, we have seen in some literature around wars, maybe some of the girls get married earlier because they are thought to be a protective feature of just having them, you know, married, or at least, you know, preventing them to get pregnant before marriage, and that may boost some of the fertility. So that's the end coming from that end. The second pathway will be, okay, what do we do, and what's happening with these particular populations as they are exploding? And then we have the other side of the picture, we have the picture of the developed countries. The developed countries, in fact, facing this challenge to the welfare state, and these possible policies to sustain that welfare state that we know they come from increasing fertility. We've discussed that. The other alternative is also something that Wolfgang has always put in the table, which is increasing productivity, increasing human capital. But the third possibility, of course, is migration, let more people in. This is, you know, also has political consequences and has a political discourse behind. So this is rejuvenating population, is potentially increasing intermarriage and changing the melting pot. Some people are talking about the third demographic transition, thinking about changes of ethnic composition. And this is, of course, limited by the ability to integrate these peoples in the labor market and about the future convergence of fertility to the arrival level. So the discussion, oops, I cannot read all that. Let me see. No, goes back. Okay, good. So the debate is about the welfare state. And in this case, we have two views. On one end is this idea of the welfare magnet. Migrants are only coming to take advantage of our benefits. On the other end, only the arrival of migrants may be the survival of the welfare state, which is going to enable at least some of the continuation of the family policies that we have under the table. So that's important because, as we have seen in our countries, this has political consequences. And that's also the second role of politics. The political consequences come from rise of populism, rise of protectionism, and most likely, potential downward pressures on the welfare state itself if we think that, some of these migrants are really coming to take advantage of our policies. So that's the second potential race to the bottom danger. But the third is more of an optimistic view. It's the idea that this migration can lead to reverse development. And so the politics may change in origins, and also, as a result, feedback on fertility. Remittances increase the ability to provide education. There's going to be conversions on fertility because of the social norms changing, because of the gender empowerment, because of the role models coming from some of these countries and the information flowing in the other direction. And then as a result, potentially democratic values and improvement of the government that may steer at the decrease in fertility.
Thank you. So I see that it's always a lot of factors behind.
It's politics.
Albert.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, for inviting me. I'm not an expert in fertility, but I just wrote my answers to the question. So the future of fertility will very much depend on the future of childlessness and its underlying reasons. Okay, so I'm saying that basically influenced by the Spanish experience, but this is a graph that shows cohort fertility rate in Spain, and the percentage of women of these cohorts who remain childless. So if we look at the decline of cohort fertility rate in Spain, I would say the 75–80% of this recent decline is very much explained by the increase in the number of women who remain childless. Okay? So, because among those who are mothers, the fertility is around 1.7, 1.8, and it's been very, very stable over time. So, we were lucky that when we published these results in 2 years ago, the Spanish National Statistical Office decided to have a fertility survey. And we copied most of the questions of the Gender and Generation Survey, but I added one question that I didn't see in the Gender and Generation Surveys: why don't you have children? Okay, and we gave them very kind of people's responses, not academic responses. So I don't get pregnant, I don't want to be a mother, I don't have the right partner, this kind of thing. Last week, they published the first results of this 2018 Spanish fertility survey made to more than 15,000 women. Okay? And our results, basically, confirm the levels of childlessness that we saw in the previous slide. So if we look at women aged 45, 49, 19% of them are childless and probably will be childless in the next 5 years. So it's close to the 20%. In this case, we are including foreign-born women and national women. In the previous slide, foreign-born women were not there. And we don't have the microdata yet, so we cannot separate that. But if we look at the Spanish-born women, maybe that's going to be 22% or 23%. Okay? What we know, thanks to the survey, is that only 46% of these childless women didn't want to become mothers. So there were at least 54% of these childless women that they wanted to have one or more children. Yesterday I was computing what would be our cohort fertility rate if we managed as a society to give children to all these 54% women, and it would be around 1.8. So the Spanish cohort fertility will be similar to the Swedish cohort fertility if we manage to all childless women that wanted to become mothers could have had these children. Okay, so now we can move to the reasons why these women didn't have children, or they don't want, or they cannot have children. So this is only based on childless women at very different ages, from age younger than 25 to 50, 54, it's the latest group. And these are the people's responses. So as you can see, basically, childless women, almost all of them are childless at younger than 25. It's too young to become a mother, or I want to continue studying. And then this is not longer a response for those women 45, 49. But 22% of these 45, 49, it's because I don't have a partner. Okay? It's, then it's the working or the family life balance. It's at these older ages is not important, but then we have the health issues. Is this I don't get pregnant? It's 21%. Then the 23% that say I don't want to be a mother, and then 18% for other reasons that combines. We don't have the microdata, so we cannot separate this 18%. Okay, but I like to look what happens at age 30, 34, and then these green bars show the ones that say I don't have the good conditions, like family life, work, and so on. So my final answer is that the future of childlessness will very much depend on the ability of societies to provide security to these critical ages from age 30 to 39, and also on the ability to provide the means to have children out of any kind of partnership. Okay, not out of wedlock, that's something that we know how to do it, but out of any kind of partnership, and also to provide the technological means to have children beyond age 40. So that will be my, okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, presenters. I see quite some correspondence between Setsuya's arguments and your arguments, because if you replace marriage with non-marriage with childlessness in Setsuya's talk, then you give a very similar answer actually. Let's give 5 to 10 minutes to questions and reflections from the floor. So I see some hands. Maybe let's start. Yeah.
Thank you very much to all presenters. And actually, let me reflect. I'm a bit surprised that nobody mentioned globalization. Tomas said about social media as a possible factor, and Alicia said about transnational migrants. But I think that globalization is more than this. And this is, in my way, is enormous possibility of cultural exchange, which means social norm diffusion, technological diffusion, and all this affects possibilities to have a child and timing of birth and so on. I mean that nowadays women can have child either by natural way or by surrogacy, and knowledge about this available for people over the world. They can decide whether to have or postpone because they somehow technically can do it. And cohabitation norm, I would say, spreading very fastly over the world. In some societies it was impossible 10 years ago. Now people get cohabiting and it's okay. So from this point of view, I think that convergency in fertility will be somehow driven by globalization, and maybe national restrictions or otherwise national prenatal policies will somehow change these convergency rates.
Thank you. So it's
globalization
and perhaps policies. The next reflection, I see a number of hands, so yeah, go ahead.
I wonder how biological factors are observed in this because there was a 2017 study on human reproduction that showed that there was more than 50% increase in sperm count in young Western men in the last 40 years, and it's a similar trend in Asia, and the causes are unknown, but theories range from 10 to 40%.
Thank you. So that's one of my favorite factors, sperm count, which will lead to zero fertility by 2050. Alicia and then Natalie.
I want to ask the panelists on stage, like, based on what you know, what are the policy rationale behind the countries who actually allow assisted reproductive technology to be available for unmarried women? Because in Taiwan, and I know also in Germany, unmarried women are not basically allowed to use ART if they want children without partner. So this has created quite a bit of the fertility gap, in the sense that what Albert just shown. A lot of women, they couldn't have children because there's no partner. They cannot have a partner. So, and even if you see that in Asia, increasingly there are a lot of women above age 35 who start to freeze their egg. But based on statistics I know from Taiwan, only 3% of the women who actually make use of the egg they put into the freezer, or whatever you call it, because for those who actually find a partner later in life, in their early 40s or mid 40s, most of them have children, naturally. They didn't really need to use the egg. But for those who just never had a partner, there's no need to use it because they're not going to worse.
So would you argue that assisted reproduction technology is one of the key factors influencing future
key factor, but
fertility?
I think that will probably help some women to realize their childbearing desire to some extent. And I'm just really curious about the policy rationale behind for the countries.
And it may help also those poor guys with bad sperm count, perhaps, which were mentioned just a while ago. Last one, Natalie, and then we have to cut the questions.
Thank you to all presenters for very interesting thoughts. I would like to respond jointly to Wolfgang and I guess. I find it very interesting to think about who desires having children.
Speak up.
Okay. I say I would like to respond to. I'll be loud. I'll be good. To Wolfgang and Albert, and bringing together the desired number of children, the resources along the way, the diversity that Trude talked about, and then who ends up being childless. We just have, I don't know if you have seen it, Sarah and I have published a working paper at the VAD just a month ago, where we use NLSY data from the US to look at early life fertility desires around age 18 of women born around 1960 and men, and how they end up around age 50. So we look at the whole trajectory. And actually we do find that there's a differential in who can achieve their early desires. But it's not the low educated who can. It's the high educated women. And it's not all high educated women. It's not those who want few kids. It's those who want many kids. About 50% of the women who will end up in this birth cohort in the US, highly educated, born around 1960, said they wanted 3 or more children. And this is significantly so the group of women who will remain childless the most. So we look at how the formation timing of partnership and marriage may mediate this. It mediates it a little bit, but it's not the main story. But I think we need to look deeper. Who wants how many children? And what are the means people take to achieve these goals? And not even within the source categories of education, income, but also which type of families people want.
Thank you, Natalie. I wonder what does your question say about East Asia, where almost no one desires 3 kids, but it could be discussed. We are short of time, so I would say up to 1 minute if the panelists would like to give some reflections, thoughts, ideas, and then we close the panel. Setsuya?
So I think I can partially answer about the globalization issues, although it might be slightly different from what you are mentioning about, because the graph I showed, the increasing number of young adults are ending up with precarious employment. That is consequences of globalization. but maybe your point is like a cultural diffusion things. But I think the cultural diffusion, we still have a quite strong differences in every part of the world. So maybe globalization, the effect of globalization is quite limited in the area of economy, but not so much with the cultures so far, at least from East Asian view.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'd just like to comment on the question from Alice about assisted reproduction for single women. So what I know from the Nordic countries, it's never been about reproduction and increasing fertility. It's about equality and justice. And it started, you know, like married couples having the rights, and then needed to expand it to also cohabiting couples or non-married couples. And then it was the same-sex couples, women couples. And then the last sort of the large next group was then the single women. So that's how it has progressed in the development, but never about increasing fertility.
Thank you. A short comment. Of course, desired family size, ideal family size is not stable. It changes over the life cycle, and if some teenagers have unrealistic desires, of course, they may change as life goes on. But it also changes in society as the norms. And I mean, the sound of music and so on, they are really inspired for very large families. And maybe in the future, if we're going to be flooded by Chinese movies in terms of globalization, where there's only childless or one-child couples, maybe that also has a normative force. And in that sense, globalization clearly is a mega trend of our times. But I think it could work both to higher and lower fertility, depending how this globalized normative system is evolving.
Especially referring to the globalization. So I agree with you. I focus on a particular point of globalization, but there's different parts of it. The technological access is important, but information is an important part, and that's basically the point I was trying to make. Talking about reverse development, we already have evidence of changes in fertility coming from social norms changes of the countries where people go, depending on where do they go, coming from the same place. For example, in Northern Africa, places, if the migrants go to the Middle East or they go to Europe, it's very different, the norms that they bring to their countries and how rapidly some of those fertilities are changing. So I think this information and this also bringing the ideas of democratic values and gender empowerment, it's an important part.
Yes, very quick. I think globalization is affecting working conditions and access to housing and all this kind of thing. So I didn't use the word globalization, but when we have a category that has difficulties to find a permanent job, to have a house, globalization is, I think, driving this economic condition. Regarding reproductive, I think we have the technological means to make sure that women or men can have children out of the partnership. But I would like to remind here this ready, willing, and able, and for most societies the willing factor now is even more important, so we need to accept to have more and more women basically to have children out of partnership, and I think as this practice becomes accepted, we'll see more and more in the near future. I think in Spain we are seeing already more women having children out of the partnership. Yeah, and the questions you said, I think once we have the microdata, we will be able to answer some of these questions. We only have basic tables now on this fertility, and in April they will open the fertility survey to everybody so that you could also analyze this.
So thank you very much. Thank you to the 5 panelists. Thanks to the audience for the questions and for being here all the time. We will ask the panelists for a short contribution into the debate section of the Vienna Yearbook. So I'm very curious how the arguments evolve also based on some of the comments here and what will be said about globalization. Now I want to say the final thank you, of course, to all of you for being here, because it's the audience who makes the conference so enjoyable. and who also does all the presentations. And I think it was a very nice and relaxed, enjoyable, but also very useful conference for most of us.